Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome to the Shrimp Tank Charleston Show. I'm your host, Eric Elkins. The Shrimp Tank Charleston is a nationally syndicated podcast that can be heard and watched on YouTube, Google, Apple, and Spotify. You can also tune in and subscribe to our shows on our website. Go to www.doublellc.com. Let me spell that for you. DOUBLEELLC.com. So I'm very happy. It's a beautiful day in Charleston, South Carolina. What's the date? I think it's March. What's the date, Chase? March 14th. Yes, March 14th. And we're very fortunate to have another guest from the Hilton Head, Bluffton, Defusky, Buford, that whole area today. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Mike Overton of Outside Brands to the Shrimp Tank Charleston. Welcome, Mike.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Eric.
I'm happy to have you. You have a very interesting company, Outside Brands, because you do a variety of things, like a lot of things, but they all kind of needle all together. And so we're going to dive into that. And I want to hear how you started the company. And we're going to take that journey of what's it like to start a company, first off, and then to grow it to the level that you've grown it. But before we get into all that kind of stuff, Mike, you're from D.C. originally.
Grew up, born and raised in the district, yeah.
Your dad was in the CIA.
He was.
See, you didn't. I got him to admit that, or you didn't admit that to Chase, because it just said your dad was in the.
He was in the agency.
Oh yeah, so you don't. But we got you to. Did you know he was in the CIA?
You know, I found out a lot about my dad close to his death. He had cancer for a few years before he died, and really even discovered things in his New York Times obituary that I didn't know.
Really?
And
so you didn't.
I knew he did. You know, he did a lot of technical training in the Mideast. Was often how he would explain his career.
So what do you think that meant? He was killing all these people?
No, I don't think he was. I don't think that was his role. He did, in the latter part of his career in the Mideast, he did really focus on training a lot of professionals in the Arab countries on technical skills. In his early days, he was more of an agent with the CIA. He was one of three people that I think was responsible for the coup that put the Shah of Iran in place in the late 50s.
Really?
And he was a student of the Mideast. I think he was probably one of the most knowledgeable on the Mideast history. You know, you look at what's happening today in Israel and the West Bank, and a lot of times I think people have a challenge understanding why. But that knowing that history going back for centuries really is a key factor of understanding anywhere, but especially that region.
So, like when you're in high school, and you have buddies come over, and is your dad around, or is he usually traveling a lot back then?
He traveled a lot, but he also, when he was in town, he was around a lot. So I would say that was both. You know, he had passions that really of the outdoors that was key in getting me interested in the career I'm in now. You know, he got us into sailing at a young age and snow skiing and
are you just? He just works in the government, basically, to you, or
you know, I would say initially you knew him as somebody who worked in the State Department.
But see, to me, knowing how I would have been if we were friends, I'm a lot older than you, Mike. I would have been like, hey, I think your dad's like in the CIA or something. Did you get that kind of stuff? Or were you like, no, my dad's just kind of is it like a True Lies Arnold Schwarzenegger thing where he's...
You know, growing up in D.C., most of the friends that I had parents in government. Some in politics, some in, political office, others in the State Department, some that were writers. And so it was a pretty status quo thing.
You have Nixon, or who was the president back then? Nixon, Ford?
You know, he obviously served under, I think, starting under Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, on into Nixon. And, one of my best friend's father was running for vice president in 72. And so we had a good time on that, being able to join part of that campaign. And
Did he win?
No, he was Vice President McGovern. He was Sergeant Shriver was running that year. For president was McGovern, and that was the biggest landslide loss in history to Nixon.
And so, all right, so your dad and then your mom was also involved in the government.
They met in the State Department or the CIA when they met in the early 50s. She was also in the agency.
Really?
They met in Germany. But she really focused her career. She quit when she had my brother that's 2 years older than me. So she quit in mid-50s and didn't go back to work until I think I was 10. And then really she spent most of her career focused on the women's rights movement. She, kind of interesting story, she, I think, was the second woman to get a graduate degree from Yale. No, I'm jumping back into the late 40s. And when she finished Yale, she moved to Washington. She had gotten a job at the State Department, and she lived in a house with 3 other young women. And one of the young women had a sister who was a teenager that was getting in trouble. They had lost their parents. And so they had this teenager move in with them, and she became quite close friends. That was Gloria Steinem.
Really?
And that, but she also had a lot of influence. She grew up in Europe, initially Germany, but then in Romania. And her father really treated them and her brother equal as far as sports, which was fairly unique in those days. But she also, when she went to Yale, the dean really questioned why a woman would want to get a graduate degree. When she first went to work for the State Department,
which to you, Chase, Chase is in his 20s, is mind-boggling. But basically the woman back then was, you just stay home, cook, clean.
Exactly. It was very rare for a woman to have a career. But, then after she'd worked at the State Department for several months, she found out that a colleague who had the exact same position she had, but was a male, was getting twice the compensation. And she challenged it. She ended up getting the same compensation, but some of those things really laid the ground for, I don't know if it's feminism, but simply equal rights in the workplace.
Yeah. So your mom sounds like she was pretty incredible.
She was a pretty fireball. You'd come home, hope she got arrested again for marching somewhere.
And they were married throughout their whole life?
They were married. They divorced in the mid-'70s.
Okay. And was it just you and your brother?
My father had 2 siblings from his first marriage. He was married before my mother, and so my brother and I. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you think of like how you built Outside Brands, is it a mix of the DNA between mom and dad, or do you go, there was I don't want to I'm only saying the ingredients of what you felt like kind of push you for Outside Brands. Is it more your dad or more your mom, or really pretty equal?
I'd say it was fairly equal. I think my father always really encouraged taking your own path. I started the business when I was in college, and it was I'm sure both of them kind of scratched their heads a little bit. My father had huge support. It originally started as a windsurfing school, and my father and I both first started windsurfing together.
And windsurfing is where you're holding on to because I see a ton of the kite, but that's...
Yeah, the windsurfing was a big, it started really in the late 60s in Southern California. I'd say the interest peaked in the mid-'80s. And so we kind of rode that wave, no pun intended. and we were taught windsurfing until I think we got out of that business right around 2000 and haven't been in the windsurfing business anymore. But you don't see windsurfers much anymore. You're right. Most people now have advanced into kiteboarding or wing foiling.
Yeah, I live on Sullivan's Island, and right where I live, it's like a patch of the kite surfing.
Down on Station 28 there, yeah.
Yeah, and it was weird because you bring up the windsurfing. There was like 19. It was a really windy day. It was last week. It was so, and I went out there with a friend, and there was like 19 kite surfers, and then one windsurfer.
What color hair did he have?
I just was more focused. I didn't even, honestly, I couldn't even answer the question. I was just like,
I'm sure it was gray.
It probably was. I just was like, I haven't seen that in forever, like it.
Yeah, there's some spots in the world where it's quite popular still, but those are very few.
Okay, so let's get, all right, so we're getting back. So your parents equally sound very successful. They both worked in the state government world, so they didn't work for themselves. And was it more of like, hey, go be your own boss, go. Were they pushing the idea of, hey, I don't want you don't have to work for someone. You can go do it yourself?
No, I don't think they didn't really push anywhere. I mean, both of them definitely were dedicated to, protecting our freedom and being really public servants. But there was no pressure to go one way or another. I mean, I think most of my peers coming out of college were going into the financial world in Manhattan. So it was a different track from most of them.
And you went on, after high school, you go on to University of Vermont.
Yep.
And do you go to Vermont because you want to ski?
Yes.
Okay. You had a good time there?
Had a good time in Vermont. I went originally as a forestry student, but skiing was definitely a draw to Vermont, and ended up majoring in resource economics, and ended up starting the business in my sophomore year.
And that business, when you started, the focus was strictly on what when you first started the business?
Strictly a windsurfing school.
But and then what are you doing? Because you can't windsurf in. Well, I guess you can't.
There's Lake Champlain's great.
Okay, so you're doing this on. All right, so you're doing this.
No, but I started it in Hilton Head. I started as a summer thing to do for the summer.
Okay, and why Hilton Head? Was your family down there?
No, I was living in Vermont in a house with another guy and two girls at college, and one of the girls had a girlfriend in town, and one weekend her boyfriend came to Burlington, Vermont to visit, and so we had this couple over for dinner, and we were sitting around the table, and it was middle of February. I remember it well. It was one of the colder nights of the year. I think it was below 30 below zero, and this guy came over for dinner, and we're talking, and he said he lived on this little island off the coast of South Carolina. It sounded really nice that evening. And the conversation went on. He said the place was booming. He had a little business doing construction, primarily siding on houses, and it was great business. And conversation went on. And he eventually said, I think we're going to start a windsurfing school this summer. And I said, well, that's cool. I know how to windsurf. He goes, yeah, we need somebody who knows how to windsurf. So about midnight that night, we decided to go into business together.
And that was it. Was there cocktails or psychedelic drugs involved in that whole thing?
It was midnight in the sophomore year in college, and so
just ended there.
Just actually, a song came on the radio a few hours later. We named this business "Sailing Shoes Windsurfing" after this Little Feat song, and
then it all started.
My grandfather passed away that winter. I inherited enough money to buy 6 windsurfers.
What is how much was 6 windsurfers?
I think they were about $1,000 each, so about $6,000. And school got out in May. I took my little Toyota pickup down to Cape Cod, which had the only windsurfer distributor on the East Coast. Although the only company that made windsurfers in those days was called Windsurfer. And so I picked up these boards. I visited a few friends, drove through the night, stopped in D.C., had breakfast with my mother. and then headed south. And I'd never been south of D.C. in my life. When growing up, the word south kind of had this ominous connotation. And so, I remember getting off at 95 up, you couldn't go straight into Hilton Head. You got to get off further north. And I remember it was very dark coming into Hilton Head. Didn't see a light. Had to wait for a drawbridge for a sailboat to go by. And guy said it was easy to find his house. They just put the first traffic light on the island, come there and turn left. And I came to his house and he gave me a beer and he said, "Look, I got to tell you something. I've decided to move to Vermont to live with my girlfriend. Where are y'all?"
This is the same guy you had the cocktails with.
Same guy, yeah. So he said, "I'll introduce you to everybody." We went out that night and he introduced me to quote unquote everybody. And I was telling Chase I got a customer then about a week later, and I took the guy down to the beach to teach him how to windsurf, and he had a miserable time. I don't think he ever stood up for more than 5 seconds. He cut his knees, got stung by a jellyfish, wanted his money back.
You know where he is now?
I have no idea, but
he's gonna find now. He's gonna be like, "There's Michael.
There he is. He might be finding me right here." So it was this guy. I was like, "Well, this sucks."
Are you debating that maybe this isn't the right career move, or were you still like, "No"?
No, I was committed to that summer. So I went and did some research. Research was a little more challenging than today. Obviously, this is way before the internet, and realized there was a place that there was something called becoming a certified windsurfing instructor. You could take a course and be taught how to teach. And so there was a place in Florida that taught a course a couple of weeks later, and I went down, took this week-long course, and aside from the skills of teaching windsurfing, they taught you those 3 most important things in business: location, location, location. And for windsurfing, aside from needing people, you needed flat water, so the ocean didn't work. You needed safe water, and you needed a place that had steady wind, that wind didn't get bounced around by buildings or so forth. And so I went to the library and looked at aerial photographs.
Do you know what a library is, Chase? It's where dinosaurs live.
Yeah, so they got these aerial photographs and looked at Hilton Head and said, "Wow, there's all these ponds all over the island." They had ponds around the golf courses and everywhere else. So I went to this pond near where I was staying and discovered alligators.
I apologize for the interruption.
Attention. Do you own a whole life or universal life insurance policy? Were you told to expect a big tax-free nest egg at retirement, or that dividends will pay for the policy instead of you? Agents frequently sell products like this that are profitable for them, but not for you. Let Double E audit your policy at no cost. Call now to find out how Double E Insurance and Financial Solutions can help you. 843-936-6352. DoubleELLC.com. Securities offered through Fortune Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Elkins Financial, Double E LLC, and Fortune Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities.
Welcome back, guys, to the Shrimp Tank Charleston. I'm your host, Eric Elkins, as well as founder of Double E Insurance and Financial Solutions. I use the Shrimp Tank Charleston platform to continue elevating my life as well as our clients' lives. If you want to reach out to me or be a potential guest on the show, please go to our website, Double ELLC, spelled out DOUBLEELLC.com, and go to the Contact Us page and put your name in the hat. So we've been sitting here speaking with Mike Overton of Outside Brands and talking about how he first got the Outside Brands company, underway in the 70s, and it was originally a windsurfing training company. And then that company, how many employees do you guys have full-time?
We're still seasonal. Full-time, we're about 60, and we more than double that in the summer.
So 60 full-time. And I'm going to probably go a little bit in and out, back to the past, back now to the future. So let's talk about these 5 different divisions of Outside Brands. Because from what you started as teaching on windsurfing to where you are now, it's pretty incredible. I mean, it's a really interesting company that I think more and more people need to know about? I'm sure a lot of the folks in that Hilton Head area are familiar with you guys, but we're letting the whole world know about Outside Brands. So tell us, give us a little snapshot of the 5 divisions.
So we do have 5 divisions. One is retail. We have 3 brick and mortar retail stores. We're outdoor retail, selling lines you might know like Patagonia and Free Fly and Cool and so forth. And we sell hard goods like paddle boards and kayaks.
I'm only familiar. I've never heard of I'm only familiar with Free Fly is the only one I've heard of out of those companies because I only wear Free Fly. I'm wearing Free Fly. You didn't even know this is a Free Fly sport code. They just came out with this.
Wow, looks good.
And Tanner Sutton, previous person on the show, founder of Free Fly, has forced me to say all this kind of stuff. I'm under control by him. But continue on, Mike. I'm sorry for the interruption. I get in trouble.
We're specialty outdoor retail. That's one division. 2.
Well, where are those retail stores?
So one's in the middle of Hilton Head, right in the Shelter Cove area. One's in the Palmetto Bluff community.
Beautiful
Community in Bluffton, South Carolina. And one is in Savannah, Georgia, right in the new Plant Riverside district, right on the Savannah River.
Oh, beautiful. All my family's buried at Bonaventure.
Wow.
Just a little side note. Not that people want to hear about that. But, okay, so we got the 3 retail stores. And yes, I am familiar with Patagonia, sorry. But I'm biased to Free Fly. And then continue. So then we got that.
So we're a guide service outfitter by a lot of metrics, possibly the largest guide service outfitter on the southeast coast. So some of those metrics, we have over 30 power boats, boats that range from 50 passenger down to 6 passenger, hundreds of kayaks, hundreds of paddle boards, hundreds of bicycles. The primary metric is a pretty remarkable team of guides and naturalists. So we take a lot of people on some pretty special experiences in the Carolina Lowcountry and coastal empire of Georgia. So that's division number 2, the leisure recreation side.
So on the leisure recreation, if I want to go on a fishing expedition, I'm hiring Outside Brands to take me on that.
Correct.
If I want to take a bike tour around Sea Pines Plantation, I'm just making this up, but
if you want a bike on the Sea Pines or a bike tour, whether it's a regular bike or an electric bike through Palmetto Bluff, or a dolphin tour, or a pretty in-depth history and gullah tour of the Fusky Island.
Oh, such a cool place.
So we have a fleet of golf carts over there. If you want kind of an ultimate day with your family, we actually have a signature program called the Ultimate Lowcountry Day, which is a day or half day we'll totally custom design for individual groups or families. In one day they can go out beachcombing on remote sandbars, looking for shark teeth on islands that have shark teeth, fishing, crabbing, shrimping, going to a 40-acre private chain of islands, which often you can have to yourself, with all kinds of activities there. That's one of our facilities.
Do you own the island?
We do. We have a chain of islands we purchased a little over 20 years ago called Page Islands.
Really?
Yeah.
You're an island? You own an island?
We own an island, and it's
what is it? Well, all right, I got to ask you. What is it? What does an island cost in South Carolina?
Boy, that's a pretty big range. But I will tell you that that's one big difference between South Carolina and Georgia. A lot of people don't realize. In Georgia, the entire coast, with the exception of a few small areas, is almost all either nonprofit or government owned. I take that there's a few developed areas such as Tybee Island and the Sea Islands, Jekyll and St. Simons, but the rest of the coast is entirely nonprofit or private owned. In South Carolina, almost every island on the South Carolina coast, big or small, is privately owned or broken up into ownership, but all private ownership of the land. And we kind of serendipitously found these islands 20-some years ago. We initially called them the Page Island Growth Center because we found it was a great place to grow teams and grow relationships, and it got into one of our divisions, team and leadership development. And we now use those islands for 3 different things. We still do a lot of team building there. It's kind of the ultimate activity outposts for folks to go over, and one island's just for kids with docks to jump off and games and so forth, or kayaks and paddleboards and fishing gear and great nature walks.
Is it like a goat island, where like intercoastal type of island, or am I going out to sea?
No, it's somewhat intercoastal. As a crow flies, we're probably 2 miles from the Atlantic. So it's a hummock. It's a chain of 9 different hummock or hammock islands. Hammock is, if you're not familiar, a term primarily in the low country, basically for a large enough sandbar to grow vegetation. But we also do big events there. We do parties and events for up to about 300 people. So if somebody wants a fancy oyster roast and party tomorrow, we actually have a pretty big wedding over there.
So electricity and what do you?
We very purposely have tried to leave the islands in a leave no trace philosophy. We have purposely not tapped a well. We haven't put conventional power for things that do need power. Like we have quite sophisticated restrooms. They're all rain catchment water, solar powered pumps. And then if we have, entertainment or lighting and so forth, most of that's done with generators.
Really? Wow, we've never had anyone on the show that owns islands. It's like the
Can I share a website for those?
Absolutely.
So if you want to just see the island, we have a number of different URLs, but if you just want to see the islands, go to pageislands.com.
Is that spelled P-A-G-E?
P-A-G-E, like the page of a book.
And why was it called Page, or was it originally
that's
called Page?
how we acquired it. It was called Page.
Who did you buy the island from?
It's an interesting story. In the late 90s, a friend of mine called me up and said he was caretaking this chain of islands for a family, and they wanted to sell it, and he thought it might be something I'd be interested in for the business. So I didn't have a boat at the time. I borrowed a boat, went over there. The dock was about the size of a small table. Went up, looked around. It was very thick with vegetation, but I spent a little hour or so looking around. I had good energy, so I got back in the boat, went back to Hilton Head, got a sleeping bag in the tent, went over and stayed for 3 days. And it had me amazing energy and beauty on this island, so I called my friend and said, "What's the deal?" And he said, this family in New York owns it. Here's the phone number. Call them up. So I called up, and the guy answered, and we talked for a while, and he finally said, "Is this Mike Overton that used to teach windsurfing?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, my name's..."
I got.
He goes, "You taught me to windsurf 15 years ago."
Really?
And long story, he said, my father we used to vacation on Hilton Head, and my father bought that island for my brother and I, thinking we'd do some kind of business there, but life has gone on. My father passed away. I've got a family and a business in New York. I don't think I'll ever go back to Hilton Head. And he was very motivated to sell it.
So you still haven't answered. How much does it cost to buy that island? This is where your parents come in. They're like, "We're in the CIA. You just keep moving." You deflected very well.
Thank you very much.
I'm a fantastic interviewer, though. I'll figure this out. So you have these islands. How long is it?
There are 9 islands, a total of about 40 acres.
Okay, are they somewhat like right beside each other type of thing?
They're all connected. Any areas, and some of them are connected. There are 9 islands in the tax rolls. Some are connected by somewhat high ground, unless it's a super high tide. Others, we've built boardwalks to connect them.
Oh, really? And any of these storms and hurricanes, they just fight through?
It was interesting because Matthew in 2016 was really the most impactful storm we've had. I mean, Hilton Head didn't get hit by Hugo much like Charleston, but it on the Hilton Head Low Country area, Matthew was the strongest storm in over 100 years. I actually stayed on Tefusky Island during that storm, but and so I got to Page Island. The storm went through the eye about 5 a.m. I got to Page Island about 11 o'clock that morning, and it was devastated.
Really?
So all the boardwalks gone, the shelters gone. It took us about a year to recover.
Wow. I just still shocked. Just great that you have this island. We should start calling you Richard Branson instead. Okay, so you have continue, because now we're going back to the divisions of the company.
So we talked about retail, our leisure recreation side. I mentioned Page Island, so the third division is a team and leadership development division. We do a lot of team building. It takes on a lot of different looks. The fourth division, which probably is our largest from a revenue standpoint, is our destination management company, outside DMC. If you're not familiar with the term DMC or destination management company, DMC is an organization that provides traveling, usually corporate groups, with everything over and above what a hotel provides. So ground transportation, putting on parties, events, decor, entertainment, activities. We try to contract ourselves when we can, but we do whatever they want to do. If you want to go race car driving or bungee jumping or have a cooking school or a city tour, whatever it is, staffing services, speaker services, team building, and so forth, really everything to support
You're general
destination.
contracting that whole. So I have my company, and I got my 100 employees coming, and you're gonna coordinate the schedule to pick us up at the the vans, sprinters, whatever, to pick us up at the airport, take us back to the hotel. We have Tuesday. We're gonna, if you want to go on a fishing expedition, we have that. If you want to go on a tour of Defusky Island, that's another. You're
want
handling
to tour a military base, whatever it is. We're a one-call stop to handle everything that meeting needs. So some executive assistant or somebody in the company doesn't have to be making 100 phone calls. It's one call to handle it all.
It's like the old school travel agency.
Somewhat, yeah. And so DMC is a common acronym in the hospitality industry and the travel industry, but that's something, and we focus really on there's national DMCs. We focus on that Hilton Head, Palmetto Bluff, Savannah market, which we know well. And after 45 years, we have a lot of the connections. So if somebody wants to get into that restaurant that you can't get into or have an event at a pretty remarkable venue, at an old fort or a military base or something, that is something we can arrange.
Yeah, and then do you have John Mellencamp for singing?
John does, Mr. Mellencamp does spend a lot of time on Defusky, but we can, if you wanted John Mellencamp, I'm sure we can probably arrange to get him.
So I go to you guys, you get John Mellencamp and his daughter, I guess, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I want to go back to, you mentioned the team building piece, because I think that word, it can vary in a lot of ways, but what's cool where I see, and your company does this, is if you have a company and I acquire another company and I got this culture of people and I got this culture of people, and I'm trying to get these two families to come together and to collaborate and make this merger or acquisition work, that's where I can hire outside brands to come and coordinate different events and stuff to help bring those teams together.
Yeah, absolutely. The team building, almost every one of our team building programs is customized to the needs of the client. So as you said, if you have that company you just described, Eric, that maybe had a merger and you got two different cultures of companies coming together and they want to reevaluate really what are our vision, what is our values, what is our purpose, and how does that relate to our core values, for example. We have a lot of different activities and programs that can bring that out, usually in a really fun way, but impactful way, so that what happens there really can relate back to the company and then ultimately to the bottom line.
Yeah, it's really one of those it's so important because it's like bringing two families together, people. It just doesn't go so swell always, and you have to build on it. You have to build, especially when you have two different cultures, which a lot of times these companies do. All right, so then that's how many? That's four?
That's four, and then the fifth division is really a completely separate organization. It's a separate corporation. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that we seeded 10 years ago in 2014 called the Outside Foundation. And the Outside Foundation is a nonprofit that has a dual mission of, one, getting kids outside, and 2, local environmental preservation and protection. But as I said, it really does a great job operating itself. It has a fantastic executive director with a small staff and a really impactful board of directors. And on that side, the 2 different missions. On the getting kids outside, the most impactful program I think the foundation has done is something called Kids in Kayaks. Hilton Head's in Beaufort County. And the Kids in Kayak program is now part of the Beaufort County public school curriculum, where every 7th grade science class in the county has this full outdoor day. And they're studying waterfowling and on the docks and so forth, and half of it in kayaks. And the foundation funds every child in the county on financial aid, which is 60% of the children in Beaufort County.
Really? Is it? Wow.
And then on the environmental preservation and protection, there's lots of waterway cleanups, but I think the most impactful thing is a community oyster recycling program that was started in 2017. We now have about 40 restaurants in the area where all the oysters that are shucked, all the shell is claimed, and we have trucks that go by daily to some of the restaurants. They pick up this shell. It's taken to a community area where it's dumped and nature does its thing for a year, and then there's volunteer bagging programs, and we've now built about 30 reefs in the low country.
Wow.
And we're pretty proud. A couple of years ago, the Pew Charitable Trust did a study, and one of the quotes that came out of that study was that this oyster recycling program was the most impactful initiative on protecting the Carolina salt marsh from sea level rise.
Wow. That's a lot of stuff.
We got a good team, yeah.
All right, so you got these 5 great divisions of the company or organizations that you've started. I got a couple questions for you, and then I got some subscribers that have some questions. One is, the DMC is your largest revenue generating piece of that business. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then is it evenly amongst the other ones? Like what percentage does DMC take from all the others?
Well, DMC it actually feeds business to the others. So when I see, for the activity side, a lot of our leisure recreation side delivers activities that are sold by the DMC side. A lot of groups want to have gifting programs. They may want a gift drop in their bedroom at the hotel every night. And so the DMC will get that business from retail. Or they might want a gifting program. One of our big footwear brands is Olakai. We have this big program now where if you're
is that shoe really that comfortable? Everyone wears that shoe.
I got it on right now.
Yeah.
They're great. Yeah,
it's good. I got
They're
messed up feet.
fantastic company, but with a big Hawaiian influence. And so we'll have a program where they may have a room, and every member of the meeting can come by and get a pair of shoes and be fitted for them. So that benefits the retail side.
So at the end of the day, it's like your holding company, almost like DMC, and then you have it's kind of like the subsidiaries, because they all kind of feed off of what DMC produces.
Everything crosses over, and it also gives us an economy of scale, both for handling the seasonality of the different businesses and for staffing. DMC a lot of times on one day may need a staff of 40, and there may be folks that are guides on the leisure recreation that can help on that side. So we're not, we are controlling the training internally.
When did you get into the DMC?
The DMC, we got into the team building when we bought Page Island, which was about 2000. And in the first 10 years of the 2000s, we did some team building for some division of every Fortune 100 company.
Really?
We also really grew our leisure recreation side in those 10 years. And we had worked with a friend of mine who owned a company up in the Outer Banks, Kitty Hawk Sports, and we built one of the first online reservation systems for the leisure recreation. And I'll answer your question about the DMC. In 2008, when the economy went south, there were two companies in the Hilton Head area doing the DMC, the Destination Management Services. Both of them went out of business. So we looked at that business and said, we're dealing with a lot of corporate groups already with the team building. We've got a pretty good logistical base with our reservation system. Why don't we get into this business? And so we started it in 2009.
A big capital investment to do it, or not that bad?
It wasn't. It wasn't an enormous investment to get into that. It was, our investment really went to the people, hiring the right people that knew the corporate world and the travel world.
And then it just kind of blew up for you.
And then it boomed, quite a bit throughout the next 10 years. That particular division came to a pretty quick halt in March of 2020 with the pandemic because it was all business travel.
But then your leisure business
But then,
bonkers.
the leisure, recreation, and the retail, the two best years, the best years we've ever had were during the pandemic. I would say from about June of 2020 right through 22 were the best years we've ever had when everybody was trying to be outside because it was a safe place to be.
And life is, and for you now, most of all the businesses are doing well.
They're doing well. The corporate travel has really come back, and it's interesting. I think one of the reasons, and it also has helped the team building, is the societal switch to this remote work. And some people are going back to in the office, but companies really value that face-to-face experience, and if people are it happens when they're on a destination meeting.
I'm curious. What is your opinion of the office versus remote? Are you a fan of the remote, or are you against it?
It's a double-edged sword. I really believe that you have to have that face-to-face energy with people. I cannot feel a meeting if I'm looking at somebody on a screen.
Yeah, you know what we do here at Double E? Every meeting that we have with each other, we do it with the microphones and the headphones like this, so that it's even more impactful. We talk like this the whole time. So no, I'm joking. God forbid people think I'm serious. But it would be actually, because it's kind of fun talking like this, don't you think?
You get a whole different perspective. It's remarkable.
So I agree. The creativity, I think the remote is great for getting some tasks done, but the creativity, and I see, and there's a lot of folks, especially in the guys coming out of college, the 20s, early 30s. I don't think it's great for their mental state either to be just at home all day.
Yeah, as you said, there's some advantage to having the lack of distractions and really getting focused work done. But I really believe that connection you get by being face to face, you can't replicate that.
I'm in complete agreement. Okay, so we could talk for days, hours about the success of Mike Overton and Outside Brands, but unfortunately we don't have the time to do it. So we do have a couple questions, if you're good with it, from some subscribers. Excuse me.
Fantastic.
That came in, and so here we go. Let's see. The first one is Doug from Marathon, Florida. It appears you have built a company based on what you are passionate about and enjoy. I love to surf, but struggle leaving my IT job that pays me good income to start what I love to do. What advice would you give me? I think this is a problem for a lot of people. Like a lot.
There's no question if you can do. I love working, and I think a lot of it's because it's the passion of what we're doing, and so I feel very fortunate, and I realize that's something that's it really was created organically. When I came here as a 19-year-old kid, I thought it'd be something to do for the summer, go back to school, and then be on my way. There wasn't a whole lot to lose when you're 19 years old. And then ended up coming back for a second summer, and it was still kind of the same feeling. There wasn't a lot to lose. Came back for the third summer, and it was like, okay, all of a sudden the responsibilities are growing, and the expectations are growing, and it's now all of a sudden it's a job moving towards a career, and so that was a really organic. I think I know it would be challenging to start that, at an older or more mature age.
So are you basically saying Doug is helpless? There's nothing for you, Doug. Just stay in the IT job.
No, I think on the other side, if you really have that passion and you really think, I always say on business, you have to be able to look at things as pessimistically as possible when you're doing a projection. And if you think you have a business that can, in the worst case scenario, sustain for 3 years, it'll probably work. So if you can call, I would say if you can find that matches your passion and you can say, okay, in the worst case scenario, this is going to work, then go do it.
All right, Doug. So quit the job today and start the surfing, but make sure that you can sustain at least living standards for 3 years. I agree. I think that's a great point. People don't look at the negative of starting a business. They only look at the positive. And it's just like with the weather. We don't know what the weather's going to be in a month or 2 months, 6 months.
Well, again, I think if you are passionate, you have that idea that it's great, and hopefully other people do. And you can come to find. When I started the business, I thought windsurfing was the best thing since sliced bread, and I assumed everybody else did, even though I found out that most people said, "What is that?"
What age were you where you were like, I'm making some serious money now?
I didn't make much money, I don't think, for the first 10 years in business. I remember I was paying myself, the first year I paid myself $100 a week. And so I would say it was into my 30s where I started feeling
you felt like it took at least 10 plus years. Yeah. All right, Denise from Folly Beach, South Carolina. I'm a fan of your company as well as your business, as well as she's a business owner. I own a couple beach retail shops, but struggle with consistent and loyal labor hires. I lose employees either to higher paying jobs or career changes. How do you retain your key people?
Well, first, thanks for that question, and I admire you being in the retail business. Retail is an industry that's obviously changing drastically, and brick and mortar gets more and more challenging. I know you're competing with your vendors every day, and it's a challenging business. So I don't know if I really have a solution for that. Part of the reason we have multiple divisions is it gives us, again, that economy of scale. I don't think I'd be in retail if we only did retail. For us, it supports, it's our billboard, it's our face, and somewhat part of our marketing chain. And it does seasonally allow us to have year-round employees. Our biggest month of the year in retail is December for holiday. And often we have guides that might be busy in the summer out sitting in a kayak coming in to work the retail shop in December to keep them working.
So they're getting a little feel of different pieces of the business.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so that is just persistence, and it's because I know retail on its own typically compensates less than a lot of other industries. And
is there anything different? Like, do you do anything different for employees? Any kind of special programs or anything internally that you go, this is something that I feel like is different than most of the...
Well, we try to train a lot. We try to train on sales skills that are good for life, not necessarily selling specifically what we have in that store. But I find that selling is a skill. Everybody's selling. I mean, if you're an attorney, you're selling a jury. If you're a doctor, you might be selling a patient on the right treatment. If you're a parent, you're selling a child on values. And a lot of the skills are really the same. And one, we try to really focus on that, which I think builds some morale. And two, we try to make it fun as well. So we have as many parties as possible.
I'd like to be invited to a party. All right, so last question. This is from me, not from subscribers. 5 years from today, what does Mike Overton look like? And what does Outside Brands look like?
In 5 years from today, Outside Brands, it's been, we've discussed, an organic journey. It's not like 45 years ago I said we're going to have these 5 divisions in 2004, and this is what it's going to look like. And so some of this came along by seeing an opportunity and grabbing it.
Was it you, though, or was it some more? Would you say that was more for people on your team pointing things out to you, or are you kind of that vision thinker?
I think it was a blend, but I do think that I've had a good luck on seeing some trends when they're right at their infancy.
I feel like you're good at you're someone that's good at that, or you're not. And the problem is most people that are not think they're good. And I'm always impressed with people. Well, one, if you have the gift is great, but two, you don't have the gift, and then you hire someone that does. But
yeah, so I guess we've been in. We grew a lot during the pandemic, and I say this because the company has gone in big growth spurts, and then we stop and we try to have our infrastructure catch up to it. In the pandemic, we added a big 49-passenger vessel called the Ohana, which is a big part. We opened our retail store in Savannah and really pushed our destination management business in Savannah. We took on more responsibility of what we're doing at Palmetto Bluff. The business grew a lot during the pandemic years. And then the last 2 years, we've been playing catch-up and redoing a lot of our infrastructure, our human resources systems, our phone systems, or some of our software. And now we're kind of looking at growing again now.
Do you need help on your insurance and financial solutions too?
There you go. And
I know someone.
I heard that.
Go ahead,
we can talk after this.
So in 5 years,
so I
is the
think
company double?
I think there's a good chance that we could be double the number of business we're doing, and I see that we have a great leadership team right now. And from a personal standpoint in operations, I don't think we've ever been in a position where I've had to be less involved in the career than I am now. I still am quite involved, but we've got a great team that's managing the company and is passionate, and they have the kind of 3 characteristics that we often look for in an employee. They are humble, they are hungry, and they are smart.
Yeah, that's a good value statement right there. It's not you don't need to make it that complicated. Okay, so in 5 years the company's bigger, and it sounds like you are getting to enjoy some of the fruits and labors. Not saying stepping away from the business, but kind of dictating your schedule. So what are you doing?
I would like to be playing a lot more. I'd like to spend a lot of my winter in Alta, Utah, skiing, and I'm a partner in a new sailboat that's up in Maine right now. I'd love to be spending more time sailing up there in the summer, and spending it. I got a 2-year-old grandchild, another one on the way.
Where do they live?
Right now, they're in Hilton Head. They're moving to Boise, Idaho in a few months. But,
well, that's cool for you too, though.
Yeah.
Are you a hunter too?
I don't hunt much, no.
Yeah, you don't seem like you want to kill things.
Yep.
You're preserving. I can't do anything. I can't fish. I can't hunt. There's not many things I'm good at. This show's about Mike Overton, Outside Brands, not about Eric Elkins. Okay. Anything, if people want to get in touch with Outside Brands for one of those different divisions, what's the best route they should take?
You can go to outsidebrands.com, and that will lead you. We have to our other brands. If you want to go leisure recreation, which was outside Hilton Head on Hilton Head, or outside Palmetto Bluff, or outside Savannah, or outside DMC, but outsidebrands.com will connect you.
It's a great company that you built. Honestly, it's pretty impressive coming out of doing something while you're in college and then seeing what it is today. It's a great company. So you can go to outsidebrands.com, and do you want people to reach out to you? If sometimes listeners want to reach out to you, do you want them to?
Sure, I'd be happy. Go Mike at outsidebrands.com is my direct email, and I would be happy to respond to anybody who reaches out.
Tell them that the Shrimp Tank Charleston sent you. All right. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a great show. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. Please check out our previous episodes on the various podcast channels, whether that's Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. And also follow the show. If you're a visual person and you want to see how handsome Mike Overton is, you can watch on our YouTube channel. Just type in the search Charleston Shrimp Tank. That's it, Charleston Shrimp Tank, and you'll find it. I would love to connect with my listeners, so please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X. Search Eric Elkins, search EELLC, or type in the Shrimp Tank Charleston. You can learn anything and everything about you, about Mike, me, whoever that you want. If you or your company would like to have enjoyable conversations about insurance and financial services, take advantage of EE Insurance and Financial Solutions. Fantastic company. I know the owner. He's a great guy. One of the smartest guys I've ever met. Again, website is EELLC.com. You can also email EE at service@EELLC.com. Lastly, if you think you know of someone that is an entrepreneur or leader making an impact in the world, that would be a great guest, then please contact our producer, Chase Cooper, at service@EELLC. I'm Eric Elkins. Focus on being a 1%er. Mike, you know what a 1%er is?
Tell me.
It's someone that does what 99% of the people won't do. So that's it, guys. Thank you. See you soon.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome to the Shrimp Tank Charleston Show. I'm your host, Eric Elkins, but in real life, I'm an entrepreneur and founder of EE Insurance and Financial Solutions. EE helps individuals and companies navigate through their financial insurance portfolios. EE provides clients an entertaining and unique experience. The Shrimp Tank Charleston Show allows us the opportunity to interview and learn from the brightest entrepreneurs and leaders around. We dive into their journey and discover what drove them to become so successful. We will make sure we get out of them not only the wins, but also the losses that they have had on their journey. We are a nationally syndicated podcast that can be heard and watched on YouTube, Google, Apple, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also tune in and subscribe to our shows on our website, shrimptankpodcast.com/Charleston, or check us out on the EE website, EELLC.com.